Peerless Tang Sect with the same culture, a small town on the border, a genius youth, ancient martial arts, and a mysterious library have created an unparalleled chapter in the magnificent era. A certain divine king said, breaking my plan, I wish Xiang had a way to take death. Zhu Xiang. He. A certain hanging coercion. Those who gave birth to me are also mothers, those who know me, I wish senior brother too. Zhu Xiang said, Young man Zhu Xiang, from weakness to invincibility, suppresses the gods with an unparalleled posture. Keywords of the novel. Jingtian Douluo from the Peerless Tang clan with no pop-ups, complete download of Jingtian Douluo TXT from the Peerless Tang clan, latest chapter reading from Jingtian Douluo from the Peerless Tang clan. Chapter 1. The north wind blows towards the village. Request for recommendation ticket. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The north wind blows towards the village. Request for recommendation ticket, Heavenly Soul Empire, Anyang City. A quiet and peaceful small village appeared in the dim night, seemingly filled with many households. The dim yellow lights intermittently pulled together, appearing so warm and beautiful on a moonless night. The cold wind blowing from the northern ice sheet seemed to have no impact on these households. At the entrance of the village, a household was still lit. This household had blue bricks and red tiles, which were very different from other households in the village. They looked more affluent, with 3 rooms and a courtyard, and 2 trees planted in the courtyard, which had a strong sense of life. In the middle room, although the light is also dim, it is still relatively bright compared to the remaining lights. By the window, there was a desk against the wall. In front of the desk was a delicate-looking boy who was engrossed in the book in his hand. His dark eyes flickered with contemplation from time to time, indicating that he was really reading carefully. The boy had a strangely shaped lamp by his hand, which looked like an oil lamp but couldn't see the ignited oil core. The light was even brighter than a normal oil lamp. The strange oil lamp emitted a bright yet gentle light, shining on the book the boy was reading. Looking closer, it was a brand new thread-bound book with a strong aroma of ink. The title of the book was written on the header of the page, on the impact of soul ring quality on the development of soul masters. When soul masters absorb soul rings, their martial souls are also strengthened synchronously. In the same year, the stronger the soul beast, the higher the quality of the generated soul ring, and the greater the reinforcement of the martial soul. If the soul beast that generates the soul ring matches the attributes of the soul master's martial soul, and its bloodline is closer to the soul master's martial soul, the higher the quality of the generated soul ring, the more obvious the enhancement of the soul master's martial soul, and the greater the improvement of the soul master's ability. Taking the cat-type martial soul as an example, if its soul master keeps attaching the tiger-type soul beast soul ring, its martial soul origin is continuously strengthened and accumulated, ultimately causing it to undergo a second awakening, evolving into a tiger-like martial soul. In short, soul masters should fully consider quality issues when selecting soul rings. The boy was so engrossed in it that he didn't even notice anyone coming in the room. The woman who came in was a beautiful woman with a 7-point resemblance to the boy. It was obvious that she was the boy's mother. Yang, it's late at night. Hurry up and rest. Tomorrow you will awaken your martial soul. Go to bed early tonight, stay energized, you know. The woman's voice was filled with love and walked up to the boy, saying. Then, before the boy could react, Su Shou picked up the strange lamp and with a gentle shake, it went out. Mom! The boy shouted helplessly, and a hint of unhappiness appeared on his delicate face. However, he did not disobey his mother's words and walked obediently towards the bed. After the boy lay down and covered himself with a blanket, the woman showed a satisfied smile, lowered her head and kissed the boy's forehead, whispering, "Good night, good night." The woman left the room, and the lights inside went out. Only the starlight passing through the window barely illuminated the books on the desk. The books gradually faded away in the starlight, as if they had never appeared before. At this moment, the boy who had already fallen asleep and closed his eyes suddenly opened his eyes, sat cross-legged on the bed, with his 5 hearts facing the sky. His eyes, which were particularly bright in the darkness, slowly closed, and he fell into an indescribable state of peace, like an old monk meditating. After 15 minutes, the boy lay down again. The boy's name is Zhu Xiang, and he is 6 years old. He is from Anyang City, Beijing Province, Tianhun Empire Town. After Zhu Xiang lay down, his mind was unusually clear. Those long-lost and dusty memories had already emerged with some vague memories, intertwined with his knowledge, shaping the wonder of this world in his mind. The Heavenly Soul Empire, one of the 4 major empires, and also one of the 3 major empires of the original Douluo continent, is one of the 2 major empires after the division of the Heavenly Do Empire. Although its area is only half of the original territory of the Heavenly Do Empire, its strength is stronger than another country of the same origin, the Doling Empire. On the Douluo continent, everyone has something called a martial soul. Regarding the essence and origin of martial souls, the widely recognized theory in the Soul Master world is bloodline theory, which means that bloodline is the root of martial souls, and martial souls are the manifestation of bloodline. It is generally believed that the purer, older, and higher the bloodline, the higher the quality and potential of the martial soul. Blood determines martial soul, so there are rarely dog blood incidents on Douluo continent where the wrong child is raised. Surrounding the martial soul, a series of knowledge and content such as soul masters, soul rings, soul beasts, soul skills, soul bones, and soul guides flicker rapidly in Zhu Xiang's mind. Unconsciously thinking too much, Zhu Xiang rolled over, his eyes wide open, without any drowsiness. Zhu Xiang will only awaken his martial soul tomorrow, so his behavior that resembles soul power cultivation before bedtime is not meditation. In fact, he is not practicing soul power, but rather practicing a special breathing method called little light breathing. Perhaps it is the result of many good deeds in his past life. Zhu Xiang was born with Su Hui and far superior intelligence to ordinary children. He can speak in March and walk in June, and at a young age, he can already read 1,000 books. He is a renowned prodigy from afar. In addition to Su Hui, there is also an unforgettable memory of his past life that lingers in his mind. The little bright breathing technique comes from this memory, and that incomplete memory seems to emphasize the importance of this breathing technique to him. With a curious mindset, Zhu Xiang began practicing the little bright breathing technique at the age of 3. After practicing according to his memory, Zhu Xiang was very shocked to find that his Tanzhong acupoint had been opened, and at the same time, a strand of qi was born. Although he was only 3 years old at the time, he had already read extensively and naturally knew the role and importance of the Tanzhong acupoint. As the source of blood, the Tanzhong acupoint is commonly known as the Jianggong Golden Palace. Normally, it opens with the awakening of the Soul Master's martial soul. In fact, along with the opening of the Tanzhong acupoint, there were also his Naiwen Palace and Huangting, and the 3 major Dantian fields were opened together, but Zhu Xiang was not aware of it. In the situation at that time, he knew that his Tanzhong acupoint had opened earlier and a mysterious aura that was definitely not soul power was born. This excited Zhu Xiang, who was naturally curious, and his desire to explore instantly made him practice the little bright breathing technique again. He was surprised to find that while practicing the little bright breathing technique, the strand of qi at the Tanzhong acupoint also underwent abnormal movements. It left the Tanzhong acupoint and swam along his meridians to his limbs and bones, from the Baihui acupoint on his head to the Guanyuan acupoint on his abdomen, from the Shaofu acupoint on his hands to the Yongquan acupoint on his feet, every meridian, every acupoint. Wherever that wisp of air flows through, Zhu Xiang can feel a faint warmth, very comfortable, just like basking in the sun in winter, warm and cozy. After completing the breathing technique of Little Guangming, the wisp of qi returned to his Tanzhong acupoint perfectly, becoming calm and motionless. Although Zhu Xiang was not aware of the origin of the little bright breathing technique or the mysterious aura, he realized that that aura was not harmful to him. The previous life of Su Hui also seemed to prove all of this. So, with the idea of starting and ending things, Zhu Xiang has always been practicing the little bright breathing technique and has not given up. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Outer Space Library and the Blonde Girl. Request for recommendation ticket. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Outer Space Library and the Blonde Girl. Request for recommendation ticket. It's another morning. As usual, Zhu Xiang woke up at 6 o'clock. As usual, wake up your childhood friends and run around the village together to exercise. As usual, I will return home at 7 to have breakfast. As usual, I start reading at 8 o'clock. Zhu Xiang returned to his room and sat at his desk. He then placed his hands on the desk, and the book that had disappeared under the starlight last night appeared in his hands, while he looked accustomed to it. Different Space Library. According to past life memories, this should be considered Zhu Xiang's golden finger, a super library that stores at least 500,000 books, and a library bound to his soul in a different space. Because this library is bound to the soul of Zhu Xiang, any book in the library will automatically appear in his hands as soon as his mind moves. For Zhu Xiang, who loves reading, it is simply a gift from heaven. Regarding the origin of this library, Zhu Xiang is not clear either, as it suddenly appeared when he was 3 years old, and yes, it appeared simultaneously after he practiced the little light breathing technique. At first, Zhu Xiang believed that this library, like his Su Hui, was a legacy from a past life. However, as he read the books inside, this idea changed, and the origin of this super library was never like this. In this super library, there is a collection of all the knowledge books that have been recorded in writing for hundreds of thousands of years since Douluo continent had its own written records. These books are either popular common sense pamphlets from the mainland, rare secret remedies kept in the treasure trove of aristocratic families, or lost and forbidden books that are unknown to the world. It can be said that all the books in the collection halls, archives, and secret treasure buildings on the Douluo continent have rubbings in this library, and it is impossible for any book building on the mainland to have all the books in this library. The book, On the Influence of Soul Ring Quality on the Development of Soul Masters, that Zhu Xiang is currently reading is a lost and forbidden book. Its author was a person from the Star Luo Empire 5,000 years ago. Not long after he finished writing this book, he was killed and burned, but he did not have time to pass it down on the Douluo continent. However, such a book appeared in this library, which inevitably surprised Zhu Xiang. There are still many books of this type, which makes Zhu Xiang understand one thing. Such a massive amount of work is not done by human labor, it is more like a gift of the world. A vocabulary that Zhu Xiang saw in a book from the church era, he deeply believed. Given Zhu Xiang's family background, if it weren't for this super library, it would undoubtedly be a pipe dream for him to see such a massive collection of books. That's why he attaches great importance to the books in the super library. From the age of 3 to now, at the age of 6, he has read over 1,000 books. Zhu Xiang undoubtedly enjoys reading very much because he can gain knowledge from books, and knowledge is undoubtedly the most precious thing. Whether influenced by past life memories or influenced by the attitudes of current parents, Zhu Xiang deeply recognizes the power of knowledge. In his view, everything in the world has its pros and cons, and only reading is a thing with only benefits and no drawbacks. In Zhu Xiang's view, even if he cannot become a soul master, he can still live well on the mainland with the books in the super library. Of course, it's not selling books. The books in the super library will automatically return to the library once they leave Zhu Xiang's hands for more than 30 seconds. He naturally relies on the knowledge in the book, such as using this martial soul knowledge to help people plan their development direction, and using soul beast knowledge to help people plan soul rings. These two things are very popular among soul masters. Zhu Xiang, who has read thousands of books, is definitely one of the most knowledgeable people on the mainland. Even without soul power, he will live very well. He is very confident about this. Of course, not being a soul master is just the worst assumption. According to the theory of bloodline inheritance, both parents are soul masters, and he will inevitably become a soul master unless his martial soul undergoes negative mutations. According to convention, Zhu Xiang usually reads until 10 o'clock in the morning. But it's not possible today. It's only before 9 o'clock and someone came to disturb him. Brother Xiang, why are you still reading? Uncle Changhe has already prepared the carriage. We need to start. A crisp voice rang in Zhu Xiang's ear, and a delicate-looking and sweet-smiling little girl appeared in his room. The girl's clothing was very simple, but it was hard to conceal the cuteness of powder carving and jade carving. Her golden long hair was tied into 2 small braids hanging on her chest, and her 2 pink big eyes were pure and transparent. Her 2 white and tender hands, as tender as new lotus roots, were placed in front of her, looking full of innocence and love. She is Jiang Nan, Zhu Xiang's childhood sweetheart. Jiang Nan, whom Zhu Xiang met when he was 2 years old, has been around for 4 years now. As the cutest girl in the village, he is naturally very willing to play with her, so the little girl is very close to him, almost treating him like her own brother. However, Zhu Xiang is definitely not satisfied with his identity as a biological brother. He wants to become a love brother more. Having Su Hui is not always a good thing, why always instill strange ideas in him? The little girl is half a month younger than Zhu Xiang and is about to awaken her martial soul today, so she looks excited all over. Okay. Let's go. Zhu Xiang put away his book, stood up, and walked to Jiang Nan's side. He gently touched the little girl's head and said, "Hee brother, why don't you look excited at all? We're about to awaken our martial souls soon." "Ah?" the little girl asked with Zhu Xiang in her eyes, her fair and tender face tinged with excitement. "Excited, of course excited, but my brother kept it hidden in his heart, which is called, happiness and anger do not show in color." Zhu Xiang took Jiang Nan's hand and said as he walked towards the outside of the house. Oh, the little girl seemed to understand, but it didn't hinder her joy and expectations. Facing the hand held by Zhu Xiang, she didn't feel anything bad. She had already gotten used to Zhu Xiang's existence. Even if Zhu Xiang didn't hold her hand, she would still hold it. In her heart, Zhu Xiang was already the closest person. When Jiang Nan was 4 years old, her father fell single when he went to the back mountain with the city guard to clear the money. He also had a very unfortunate encounter with a soul beast with an 800-year cultivation. When Zhang's father, who had only 1 cultivation, was found by others, he was already left with only 1 breath left. Although the soul beast was also killed, Zhang's father was not able to survive. From then on, Jiang Nan and his frail mother relied on each other. Although they received compensation and subsidies from the city lord's mansion, the family was without a pillar, and the lives of the mother and daughter were still very difficult. In this remote small town, having no labor at home can be considered a catastrophic disaster for a family. Since then, Jiang Nan has become more dependent on Zhu Xiang. The little girl who lacks fatherly love cannot resist Zhu Xiang's brother-like care. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Continuing the glory of the church in the northern small town. Request for recommendation ticket. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Continuing the glory of the church in the northern small town. Request for recommendation ticket, in front of Zhu Xiang's house. Zhu Xiang's parents and other children in the village who meet the conditions for awakening their martial souls have all arrived. Dad, Mom. Zhu Xiang pulled Jiang Nan to his parents. Zhu Changhe, the father of Zhu Xiang, was a handsome man with an elegant face. After seeing his son come out, a smile appeared on his face and he said, "Everyone has arrived. Children, get in the car." Yes. The other 7 children boarded the carriage of the Zhu family, filled with anticipation from their parents. Village chief, please. The parents of 7 children respectfully said to Zhu Changhe. Don't worry, you all go back. We're going to set off. Zhu Changhe is the village head of Beihe village and also the top expert of Beihe village. He is 35 years old this year and a level 28 soul master. Despite being almost 40 years old, he is still a great soul master. It can be said that he has no hope in his life. The martial soul of Zuchang is the Huiguang Sickle, an ordinary weapon soul that can be considered as a light attribute. Starting from Grandpa Zhu Changhe's grandfather, the Huiguang Sickle martial soul has been steadily passed down in the Zhu family for 6 generations. Zhu Xiang is the 7th generation, and he has a 50% chance of inheriting this martial soul. Why is it 50% possible? Because his mother Liangying is also a soul master. Liangying is 2 years younger than Zhu Changhe. She is 33 years old this year and is a level 25 soul master. Her martial soul is the Snow Dragon Lizard, a dragon-type soul beast with a thin dragon bloodline. In terms of quality, the Snow Dragon Lizard's martial soul is better than the Huiguang Sickle's martial soul, but not much. The other 50% of Zhu Xiang's martial soul may be on this Snow Dragon Lizard martial soul. As they are all ordinary martial souls, 1 weapon martial soul and 1 beast martial soul, it doesn't matter to Zhu Xiang anymore. As long as he can cultivate, ordinary martial souls are just ordinary martial souls. With so much knowledge in his mind and in the library, there are always hidden methods that can make him take off. Liangying led Zhu Xiang and Jiang Nannan into the carriage, and Zhu Changhe drove the carriage towards Anyang City not far away. Beihezhuang is located on the outskirts of Anyang City, only 2 to 3 miles away from the south gate of Anyang City, and their destination this time is the Lord's Mansion, which is only 400 to 500 meters away. In about 15 minutes, they arrived at Anyang City. In fact, they could walk over so close, but Zhu Xiang didn't say much about his father's decision. Many children are entering the city for the first time, looking at everything outside with curious eyes, but Zhu Xiang has already been to Anyang City multiple times. This is just a small town. This is Zhu Xiang's impression of Anyang City. Anyang City is located in the northern frontier of the Heavenly Soul Empire, with the outer forest of the Arctic ice sheet to the north, a huge mountain range called the Northern Mountains running east-west to the south, Longqing, the main city of Zhenbei Province, to the east, and a north-south canyon to the west. Due to the complex terrain on all 3 sides, the geographical location of Anyang City is irrelevant, and almost no one wants to come here. It is an optional city. The scale of Anyang City is not very large either. In name, it is a city, but in reality, it is only a slightly larger town with a small population of about 200,000. The strongest person is the city lord Hongzhen, who holds the title of Baron of the Heavenly Soul Empire in a level 42 defense soul sect. The carriage arrived at the Lord's Mansion. Zhu Changhe is also considered a prominent figure in Anyang City. He is one of the deputy captains of the city guard, and most importantly, he is related to the city lord Hongzhen. Hongzhen's grandmother is Zhu Changhe's grandfather's younger sister, which means Hongzhen and Zhu Changhe are considered cousins. The gatekeeper of the Lord's Mansion was very sensible and took the carriage from his hand, and went to park it on his own. Zhu Changhe and Liangying entered the Lord's Mansion with 9 children, including Zhu Xiang and Jiang Nannan. They arrived at the hall used for martial soul awakening in the Lord's Mansion with ease, and at a glance, they saw a big man who was nearly 2 meters tall. "Ha, Brother Changhe, you're here." The big man grinned and his voice was deafening when he saw Zhu Changhe. "Brother Hong." Zhu Changhe replied with a smile, "I have to rely on you today." This Han is the Lord of Anyang City, Baron, 42 level Ice Plain Elephant Soul Sect, and Hongzhen. Today, it was him who awakened the martial soul for Zhu Xiang and others. The city lord personally presided over the martial soul awakening ceremony, and it was also a free awakening. This is undoubtedly a great gift for the children of Anyang City. After all, in the vast majority of the three empires, it is impossible for commoners to awaken their martial souls for free. If commoners want to awaken their martial souls, they either sell themselves to the imperial military or sell themselves to nobles. In addition, they can only pray to meet kind-hearted high-level soul masters to come and give alms. The awakening of martial souls is completely monopolized by the aristocratic class. It's really sad. Zhu Xiang has read books on history and knows that this tragic situation was formed 10,000 years ago in the battle known as the Great Victory of Jialingwan. In the official history books of the three empires, the description of that battle is the same. Under the leadership of the great Sea God Lord, His Royal Highness Lanhao King, and Qianshou Douluo Crown, the imperial coalition destroyed the evil ambition of unifying the continent in the martial soul hall, achieved the ultimate victory of the war, and maintained the stability and peace of the continent. After the battle, the last pope of the martial soul temple, Bibi Dong, died, and the Virgin Mary, Qian Renshue, went missing. The church era came to an end, and the martial soul temple, which awakened martial souls for free for everyone, was destroyed. Along with it was the golden age of civilian soul masters. The glory of the former church now requires a small northern town to continue. What a satire! Brother Hong. Uncle Hong. Liang Ying and Zhu Xiang also approached and greeted Hong Zhen. Miss Ying is also here. Hong Zhen responded to Liang Ying, then looked at Zhu Xiang and laughed. Xiao Yang has also reached the age to awaken his martial soul, so fast. Yes. Zhu Changhe also said with great emotion. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Hong Zhen is a straightforward northern man who never procrastinates in his work and spoke up. Under the arrangement of Zhu Changhe and his wife, 9 children formed a row, with Zhu Xiang standing first, followed by Jiang Nan Nan and the other children. Xiaoyang, come to uncle. Hong Zhen had already prepared everything, and when he saw that the children were also ready, he shouted to Zhu Xiang, who was the first one. Zhu Xiang didn't hesitate and walked quickly towards Hong Zhen. His heart couldn't help but accelerate. To be honest, he wasn't nervous, that was fake. It was a matter of life, and he really didn't want to live a life of mediocrity, especially in such a big world. A few steps later, he arrived in front of Hong Zhen, and then, guided by Hong Zhen, walked into a 6-pointed star composed of 6 painted black stones. He knew these 6 black painted stones, the awakening stone, an extremely important resource monopolized by imperial aristocratic families and powerful forces, capable of carrying out the most effective way of awakening martial souls. After seeing Zhu Xiang standing up, Hong Zhen activated 6 soul powers in succession, which accurately entered the 6 awakening stones. In the next moment, the 6 awakening stones emitted light, and then formed a light shield that surrounded Zhu Xiang. Close your eyes, calm down, and feel it seriously. Hong Zhen said. Zhu Xiang has no other choice but to follow suit. He unconsciously used the little light breathing technique, and his mood immediately calmed down. Then, his whole body calmed down, and faintly, he felt a force being pulled out of his body, about to emerge. He immediately realized that it was his martial soul. So he instinctively extended his right hand, and at this moment, Hong Zhen's guidance also arrived. Extend your right hand. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Mutated Martial Souls and Innate Soul Power. Request for recommendation ticket. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Mutated Martial Souls and Innate Soul Power. Request for recommendation ticket. In the 6-pointed star formation, Zhu Xiang extended his right hand and a faint light appeared. I saw his palm facing towards the sky, a white light flickering. The next second, a white sickle appeared in his hand, shining with a holy radiance, a symbol of light. Zhu Xiang was momentarily stunned and he saw the sickle in his palm. At the moment when the sickle appeared, Zhu Changhe breathed a deep sigh of relief and a bright smile appeared on his face. The 7th generation of the old Zhu family has been passed down. Although Liang Ying was somewhat disappointed, she was also very happy. Although her son did not awaken the same martial soul as her, as long as he could become a soul master, it was enough. Although the martial soul of Lao Zhu's family is ordinary, every generation can have 3 or 4 levels of innate soul power, which is very stable. Wow, is this the martial soul? Brother Yang's martial soul is a sickle, it looks so handsome. I don't know what my martial soul will be. How nervous. After seeing Zhu Xiang successfully awaken his martial soul, the children were also very excited and began to make sounds. However, all of this has nothing to do with Zhu Xiang. At this moment, Zhu Xiang is focused on his martial soul, a pure white sickle, not a farming tool type sickle, but a combat type sickle. The slender sickle handle looks like it is made of silver, presenting a pure white color throughout. It is engraved with intermittent textures, making it difficult to see why. At first, the back of the sickle blade is wider, but the closer it is to the tip, the narrower it becomes. The tip is in the shape of sharp spikes with blood grooves, which can be used for piercing. The entire blade is bright and shiny, with a ring-shaped sub-blade at the back, which is used to balance the weight on both sides and can also be used for attacking. The sickle handle passes through the middle of the two, making them blend together. The top of the sickle handle is sharp, like a gun tip, with a light-colored skull carved on it, which is quite eerie. Overall, this is a very standard battle sickle, but the strong aura of light emanating from it indicates that it is actually not ordinary. This is his martial soul, the glow sickle. The information of the martial soul came to mind in Zhu Xiang's mind. Glow sickle, a variant of Huiguang's sickle martial soul, is a difference of one word, but it is the difference between advanced martial soul and ordinary martial soul. It is obvious that the glow sickle martial soul is a high-level martial soul with the attribute of light. Although the Huiguang sickle martial soul of the Zhu family possesses the element of light, it is very rare and can only be considered as an incomplete attribute of light. On the other hand, the Huiguang sickle martial soul of Zhu Xiang has a complete attribute of light. According to the theory of element affinity, the affinity of the light element in the Huiguang sickle is less than 10, while the affinity of the light element in the Huiguang sickle must exceed 30, meeting the definition of attribute martial soul. Zhu Xiang was extremely excited in his heart, and he glanced at his left hand, a hint of excitement flashed in his heart. Is it the same dark light sickle martial soul as Brother Changhe? Not bad, not bad. Hong Zhen did not notice the difference in Zhu Xiang's martial soul, but it did not prevent him from expressing happiness at such a result. Sure enough, it was not wrong to make Zhu Xiang the first to awaken, and the start was successful. He grinned and said, "Come on, Xiaoyang, let's see how much your innate soul power is." Hong Town has already assumed that Zhu Xiang has soul power. Zhu Xiang was also looking forward to his innate soul power. Without any guidance, he retrieved his martial soul and quickly walked to another device taken out by Hong Town. That is a blue crystal ball, which is the most basic soul power testing device and is called a soul power testing crystal. "Just put your hands on top," said Hong Zhen. Upon hearing the words, Zhu Xiang followed suit and saw his right palm pressed against the crystal ball. Soon, the crystal ball began to shine. Seeing this scene, Zhu Changhe and his wife finally let go of their worries. The light of the crystal ball slowly rose and quickly filled the entire crystal ball. Suddenly, the light burst forth. Upon seeing this scene, Hong Zhen's eyes immediately widened and he couldn't help but take a few steps forward. His eyes were fixed on the shining crystal ball, and he murmured, "I'm so good, surprisingly, I have innate soul power." "Brother Hong, is it really innate soul power?" Zhu Changhe and Liang Ying have also gathered around and asked Hong Zhen, their eyes filled with surprise and excitement. "That's right, it's indeed innate full soul power." Hong Zhen looked at Zhu Changhe and his wife with envy and affirmed, "I've lived for almost 40 years, and it's the first time I've seen innate full soul power." This is the first innate full soul power in Anyang City. Brother Changhe, you two are really lucky. Great, great, Changhe, look, our Yang Yang is innate full of soul power. Liang Ying exclaimed excitedly, grabbing Zhu Changhe's arm. Hiss, I saw it. Don't pinch me. Hey, although Zhu Changhe was also very excited, he was more calm than his wife and didn't lose his composure too much. Zhu Ziang also widened his eyes and stared intently at the soul power test crystal, with a surprised and proud expression on his face. He mutated into a high-level martial soul and added innate full soul power, which is a standard configuration for a properly titled Douluo level strong person. In the historical books and biographies he has read, the vast majority of the top powerful individuals who have left a lasting mark in history are born with full soul power. Now that such talent has fallen on him, it has made Zhu Ziang, who was already unwilling to be mediocre, extremely emotional. Zhu Ziang looked at his excited parents, at the shocked Hongzhen, at the admired childhood sweethearts, and then at the envious other children, suddenly enjoying the feeling of being watched. He was taken aside by his parents. As he passed by Jiang Nanan's side, he made a cheering gesture towards her. Jiang Nanan responded with a sweet smile, and then, guided by Hongzhen, walked into the six-pointed star formation. Good son, truly a mother's treasure. Liang Ying hugged Zhu Ziang into her arms, her beautiful face full of excitement, and said, I never expected that my son was born with full soul power. Zhu Changhe also sighed, his face excited like Liang Ying. Good son, let your father take you to hunt for the first soul ring this afternoon. In this way, my son will be a 6-year-old soul ring master, he, Liang Ying said, starting to giggle foolishly because Zhu Ziang's frustration of not being a martial soul of the snow dragon lizard disappeared. No way. Don't. Liang Ying was full of anticipation, but she didn't expect that both Zhu Changhe and Zhu Ziang, father and son, would reject her proposal at the same time. Ah. Why? Liang Ying's face suddenly pulled down, looking at Zhu Changhe with dissatisfaction and confusion, and asked. Oh my wife, you're too impatient. Zhu Changhe said helplessly, hunting the first soul ring is not a small matter. It will take at least 3 days. How could you just leave? We have to go back and prepare dry food and gifts. Yes, Mom. And I haven't figured out which type of soul beast to choose for the first soul ring yet. You always have to let me go back and plan first. Zhu Ziang also said. Well. Okay. I can't say anything about you father and son, let's just listen to you. Liang Ying listened to the father and son's words, although she was a bit unhappy, she also understood that she was anxious, so she agreed. Upon hearing this, the father and son couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, glanced at each other, and smiled knowingly. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Cute and Talented Little Green Plum. Request for recommendation ticket. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Cute and Talented Little Green Plum. Request for recommendation ticket. During the conversation between Zhu Ziang and his family, Jiang Nannan had already completed the awakening of his martial soul. Wow, another innate level 8 soul power. Hongzhen's rough and loud voice caught the attention of the family of 3 with its exclamation and content. They looked over and saw that Jiang Nannan was currently testing his innate soul power. Although the light from the blue crystal ball did not almost fill up like Zhu Ziang, it also lit up a large part of it. This level is exactly the level of innate 8th level soul power. Today is really lucky. The first one has innate full soul power, but the second one also has innate 8th level soul power. Is Anyang City about to rise? Hongzhen muttered loudly, his eyes filled with joy as he looked at Jiang Nannan. Little girl, what's your name? My name is Jiang Nannan, Jiang Nannan instinctively replied, her eyes fixed on the blue crystal ball. After spending so much time with Zhu Ziang, she understood very well what innate 8th level soul power meant, so she was very happy, her eyes curved into crescents. Jiang Nan. Hongzhen heard Jiang Nanan's name and immediately knew her identity. A hint of guilt flashed on his face and he said, "You are Jiang Ning's daughter." "Yes, brother Hong." Zhu Changhe walked over and answered Hongzhen's words, looking at Jiang Nan with a hint of pity and relief in his eyes. Jiang Nan didn't pay attention to their conversation, although she knew they were talking about her father. The little girl didn't want to touch on this topic. Therefore, she bounced and ran towards Zhu Ziang. "Brother Ziang, he is also a soul master." The little girl ran happily to Zhu Ziang's side, her eyes full of excitement, and shouted as if inviting him for credit. Nan is really great." Zhu Ziang smiled and reached out to rub the little girl's head, saying. He was very surprised in his heart. Jiang Nanan's martial soul was just an ordinary soft-bone rabbit martial soul, but he had an innate 8th level soul power. Such a talent was undoubtedly outstanding. He didn't expect his childhood sweetheart not only to be cute, but also to have such excellent talent. God wished him good luck. "That's right, Nan is amazing." Liang Ying also took Jiang Nanan's small hand and said with satisfaction. For this sensible and well-behaved little girl, she really likes her very much. She is exquisite and lovely, not to mention her natural talent. She is just a perfect match for their family's Yang. With such thoughts in mind, Liang Ying looked at Jiang Nan with even more loving eyes and said, "If your mother finds out, she will definitely be very happy." Mom will definitely be happy." Jiang Nanan's eyes showed anticipation. If it weren't for waiting for everyone to awaken their martial souls, she might have run towards home immediately. After Jiang Nan, the other 7 children also completed the awakening of their martial souls one after another, but unfortunately, the scenes of genius imagined by Hongzhen did not appear one after another. Only 2 out of 7 children possess soul power, while the other 5 are useless martial souls that cannot be cultivated. And the 2 children who possess soul power, one named Zhu Shaoling, have an innate soul power of level 3, a martial soul sickle. Unlike Zhu Ziang's glowing sickle, Zhu Shaoling's martial soul is an ordinary agricultural tool sickle. Another child with soul power is called Jiang Cheng. His martial soul is not only blue-silver grass, but also has only 1 level of soul power. If nothing unexpected happens, his cultivation level in this lifetime cannot exceed the 3rd ring road. "Brother Hong, let's go back first. See you at the end of the month." Zhu Changhe, who was preparing to leave, stood in front of the carriage and said to Hong Town, who personally escorted them out. "Okay, brother Changhe, see you at the end of the month," Hongzhen said. "Remember to let Xiaoyang come to our Anyang college. With Xiaoyang's talent, there may also be a soul master admitted to Shrek College in Anyang College." Hongzhen's face was full of smiles, and when he mentioned the name Shrek College, his eyes were filled with admiration and longing. "If I could really do this, then I would die in peace." Zhu Changhe replied with a hopeful expression upon hearing about Shrek College. Upon hearing their conversation, Zhu Ziang's heart stirred up a slight wave. Shrek Academy. For him, who is well read, how could he not know about this legendary college, which is known as the #1 college in the world? Among the biographies he has read, at least 5 out of 10 titled Douluo are students of Shrek College, indicating its influence on the mainland. He must be admitted to Shrek College. "Alright, you guys go back. I have children from the next village who need to awaken their martial souls," Hongzhen said with renewed excitement as he swept away his previous emotions. "Okay, let's go back first," Zhu Changhe said and jumped onto the carriage. "Uncle Hong, goodbye." Zhu Ziang leaned out and bid farewell to Hong Town. "Well, goodbye," Hongzhen responded. As the strongest person that Zhu Ziang can come into contact with, he still hopes that Hongzhen can establish a good relationship. After all, he may need Hongzhen's help to hunt soul rings for him in the future. The carriage, led by Lin Lin, quickly returned to Beihe village. At the doorstep of Zhu's home, the parents of the children have been waiting for a long time, eagerly awaiting the news that will determine the future fate of their family. At the end of the crowd, a beautiful woman with a pale face, leaning against the wall, also eagerly waited. Her appearance was 7 times similar to that of Jiang Nan Nan, her body looked weak, and her eyes showed a hint of sadness. She was Jiang Nanan's mother, Baisini. The carriage arrived at the door, and the children got off one after another, finding their own parents. Families without soul power were in a state of despair, while families with soul power were happy and smiling. The stark contrast was very cruel, dividing them into 2 worlds of people, and their joys and sorrows were no longer the same. Mom. As soon as Jiang Nan Nan got off the car, he saw his mother standing behind him. He quickly ran towards her, with a smile on his face that made people couldn't help but laugh. "I'm back," Baisini hugged Jiang Nan Nan and whispered. "Mom, I have awakened my martial soul. It's a soft bone rabbit, and I have level 8 soul power." Jiang Nan Nan proudly raised her head and said loudly. Upon hearing this, Baisini was so excited that she hugged her tightly in her arms. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she murmured, "Brother Anning, have you seen it? Nan Nan has also awakened the spirit of the soft bone rabbit." "Mom, don't be sad." Jiang Nan Nan saw her mother's sad expression, and the smile on her face disappeared. She comforted her very sensible. Mom is happy." Baisini wiped away her tears and said with a smile, "Good Nan Nan, let's go home and Mom will cook delicious food for you." "All right." Jiang Nan Nan burst into laughter and cheered, turning around to bid farewell to Zhu Ziang. "Brother Ziang, I'm going home first." "Well, goodbye," Zhu Ziang smiled. "Don't forget to practice tonight." "Don't worry, I won't." The little girl took her mother's hand and left the Zhu family. "Village chief, then we'll leave first," the parents of the other children said one after another. "Okay, I won't give it any more," Zhu Chanhe said lightly, reminding the parents of the 2 children who have soul power. "Xiao Jiu and Jiang Wu, remember to prepare your children's tuition fees. Having soul power is not easy, so you have to go to Anyang University to study." "Understood, second brother," replied the 2 named parents. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Twin Martial Souls and First Practice. Above, seeking recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Twin Martial Souls and First Practice. Above, seeking recommendation tickets, wishing home, living room. After a busy day, the couple of Zhu Changhe and Liang Ying, who have finally cleared up, are now lying on a bench, embracing each other and enjoying a moment of peace. However, Zhu Ziang clearly had no intention of letting them continue to enjoy it. He walked into the living room and approached the couple with a strange expression on his face. Yang, what's wrong? Are you hungry? Mom will go cook now, wait a moment." Liang Ying saw her son coming and immediately sat up from her husband's embrace, asking softly. Zhu Changhe also looked at him with concern. The couple had always been satisfied with Zhu Ziang's intelligence. Now that he had awakened his martial soul and possessed innate full soul power, this satisfaction reached its peak, making them very proud. Zhu Ziang stopped Liang Ying from wanting to cook, and with a slightly excited tone, he said, "I'm not hungry, I just want to tell you something." "Oh. What's up?" Zhu Changhe heard the excitement in his son's tone and couldn't help but become curious, asking. "Yes, Yang, what's going on?" Liang Ying also looked at Zhu Ziang and asked. "I still have a martial soul," Zhu Ziang said, his voice calm and without any fluctuations, as if saying something unrelated to himself. This casual attitude obviously also affected Liang Ying. She didn't even realize what her son had said, nor did she realize that her husband behind her had been stunned. She said nonchalantly, "Hey, I thought it was something big, just. Ah. Wish Changhe. What are you doing? Before Liang Ying could finish her sentence, she was suddenly stood up and jumped into Zhu Changhe's side, causing her to be confused and angry. But at this moment, no one cares about her emotions. Zhu Changhe looked at Zhu Xiang with bright eyes, and his expression was both surprised and excited. He almost hoarsely said, "You said you still have one martial soul. Are you saying you have two martial souls?" Zhu Xiang was not surprised by Zhu Changhe's reaction, his face remained unchanged and he didn't speak. He just extended his hands and silently recited in his heart. In an instant, a chill struck, and Zhu Xiang's two tender white hands were immediately covered by a layer of frost-white scales. Her bright eyes also turned into the unique vertical pupils of dragons. Wishing Xiang's second martial soul, the Ice Tyrannosaurus Rex. Cold Ice Tyrannosaurus Rex, also known as Arctic Tyrannosaurus Rex, is a genuine sub-dragon spirit beast belonging to the Earth Dragon. It has a strong physique and the power to control cold ice, making it the most powerful dragon spirit beast on the Arctic ice sheet. Meanwhile, the Arctic Tyrannosaurus Rex is also one of the most representative martial souls in the northern region of the mainland. This is. Zhu Changhe's pupils suddenly shrank, and then an indescribable joy appeared on his face. His voice grew louder, shouting, "My son is a twin martial soul. My son is a twin martial soul. My son. Ah ah. Yang Yang. You are a twin martial soul." At this moment, Liang Ying finally reacted and rushed over, hugging Zhu Xiang in her arms. Her beautiful face was filled with excitement, and she shouted loudly. Looking at his parents who were so embarrassed, Zhu Xiang could only wait helplessly, waiting for their emotions to calm down. For a long time, the couple finally calmed down. "Husband, Yang Yang is a twin martial soul, right?" "That's right. Yang Yang is still naturally full of soul power, right?" "Yes. Our son is a super genius." The conversation between the couple was very calm, as if they had entered the sage mode after passion. "Come, Yang Yang, let Dad see your second martial soul." Zhu Changhe was eventually more calm than Liang Ying, knowing that what was important at the moment was his precious son. So he pulled over Zhu Xiang and carefully observed the scales on his arm. "Great, Yang Yang's second martial soul looks like a snow dragon lizard martial soul just like me," Liang Ying said to herself with a silly smile on her face. "Hee, that's great. Now, I don't have any regrets, No. I don't think Yang Yang's martial soul is the snow dragon lizard." At this moment, Zhu Changhe, who had observed it, said and immediately extinguished Yang Ying's silly laughter. "What are you saying?" Liang Ying looked at Zhu Changhe with an expression she didn't understand. "Oh, why are you looking at me like this?" "I'm telling the truth. The scales of Yang Yang martial soul are larger, lighter in color, and cooler than those of snow dragon lizard. Although I'm not sure what kind of martial soul it is, I can assert that it's definitely not snow dragon lizard martial soul." Zhu Changhe smiled helplessly at his wife's expression and pointed to Zhu Xiang. "I don't believe it, can you put the martial soul out and compare it yourself?" "This." Liang Ying hesitated and reached out her hand. Suddenly, a layer of fine scales appeared on the back of her hand. The difference between the scales on Liang Ying's hand and those on Zhu Xiang's hand was instantly evident, as they were completely two types of martial souls. This surprised Liang Ying, who looked at Zhu Xiang and asked, "Yang Yang, what kind of martial soul are you? Why is your martial soul different from your mother's snow dragon lizard?" Zhu Xiang felt a little proud and said, "Of course it's different. My martial soul is like a cold ice dragon. Ice Tyrannosaurus Rex." The couple screamed in unison. As northerners born and raised, they naturally heard of the power of Ice Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is why they were so excited and surprised. That's right. Zhu Xiang understood his parents' feelings very well, with a smile on his small face. Husband, why does my son have the cold-ice Tyrannosaurus Rex soul? Excited, Liang Ying asked the key question, which was also a concern for Zhu Changhe. After a moment of contemplation, Zhu Changhe said, I think it should be caused by a mutation in the martial soul. Your snow dragon lizard martial soul belongs to the dragon-type martial soul, and there is a certain chance that it will mutate and evolve into a stronger dragon-type martial soul. Zhu Xiang listened on the side, nodding incessantly. Although limited by resources and identity, Zhu Changhe had limited access to books, he still deduced the reason from his knowledge, which Zhu Xiang quite agreed with. That is to say, Yang Yang's martial soul is a mutated martial soul. So, will there be any side effects? Liang Ying's heart tightened and she immediately asked. You don't have to worry about this. Yang Yang's second martial soul has a very stable aura and is a perfect positive mutation. Zhu Changhe smiled, and if I'm not mistaken, Yang Yang's first martial soul is also a mutated martial soul. Although Zhu Changhe is not familiar with the theory of twin martial souls, he is aware of the importance of balance, and the strange feeling he experiences when his martial soul awakens, which is why he came to this conclusion. Yes, my Huiguang Sickle martial soul has also undergone a mutation, becoming a more powerful Guangguang Sickle with a brighter attribute. I believe you should be able to feel it, Dad. Zhu Xiang replied without any intention of concealing it. Sure enough. Zhu Changhe smiled confidently and said, Glow Sickle, release it and let me take a look again. Okay. Zhu Xiang nodded and reached out his hand. The Glow Sickle martial soul appeared in his hand, and the rich light attribute immediately activated the light elements in the surrounding air. Zhu Changhe also released his martial soul, and a battle sickle similar to the Glow Sickle appeared. The two battle sickles were highly similar, but they were vastly different. The color of the Glow Sickle is brighter and pure white, while the color of the Glow Sickle is relatively dull and grayish-white, indicating the difference in brightness attributes between the two martial souls. This is the advanced martial soul, it's so beautiful. Zhu Changhe looked at his son's martial soul with envy and obsession in his eyes, murmuring. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Twin Martial Souls and First Practice. Below, seeking recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Twin Martial Souls and First Practice. Below, seeking recommendation tickets, for a long time. Alright, put away your martial soul. Zhu Changhe said. He looked at his son with satisfaction. His son was truly outstanding, inheriting his calm and intelligent abilities, as well as possessing innate full soul power and twin martial souls. He was truly outstanding. Zhu Xiang put away his martial soul and saw his father looking at him with a solemn expression. With a movement in his heart, he knew what he was going to say. This is a very important matter, Yang, which martial soul do you decide to cultivate first? Zhu Changhe asked seriously. Nature is a glowing sickle. Zhu Xiang had already anticipated this question, and he had already thought of it himself, so without any hesitation, he answered directly. That's great. The satisfaction in Zhu Changhe's eyes grew stronger, but he still reminded Zhu Xiang, saying, remember, don't easily expose yourself as a twin martial soul without enough strength. Not everyone is like their parents. I will. Zhu Xiang replied solemnly. Hey! You father and son are really not asking for their opinions, are you? Liang Ying, who had been talking to them for a long time, said with some dissatisfaction. Why should Yang first cultivate the weapon martial soul? Aren't our beast martial soul even stronger? Moreover, Yang Yang's beast martial soul is the cold ice Tyrannosaurus Rex, the strongest Yalong martial soul in the north. Zhu Changhe looked at his wife in silence, and was glad that his son was like him, not his mother. My wife is good at everything, but she is too naive and has not experienced the dangers and hardships of the outside world. He could only explain in a warm voice, think about it, the soul released by Yang Yang when he awakens his martial soul is the glow sickle. So many people can see it. If you first cultivate the cold ice Tyrannosaurus Rex martial soul, isn't it obvious to others that he is a twin martial soul? If you encounter someone with malicious intentions, such as an evil soul master, then Yang Yang will be in danger. This. Liang Ying blurted out unconsciously. She immediately grabbed Zhu Xiang's hand and said, Yang Yang, listen to your father, don't easily expose your twin martial souls. I heard that the current evil soul masters have already established sections. Be careful. Don't worry, Mom, I know. Zhu Xiang grabbed Liang Ying's hand and said. In the evening, Zhu Xiang's room. As usual, Zhu Xiang, who should be reading at his desk at this time, has already gone to bed. He is going to practice now. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, he did not immediately follow the meditation method given by Zhu Chanhe for meditation practice, but subconsciously activated the little light breathing method. What surprised him was that the wisp of qi in the Tanzhong acupoint had stopped moving. No matter how much Zhu Xiang practiced the little bright breathing technique, the wisp of qi remained motionless, as if it had taken root. Zhu Xiang tried several times and everything was the same, so he had to reluctantly give up. I became even more curious about the little bright breathing technique in my heart. Without being immersed in curiosity and doubt, Zhu Xiang began his first soul power cultivation. He activated his meditation thoughts, and the soul power in his body suddenly became active. Under his control, the soul power began to consciously swim through his meridians, starting from his Qihai acupoint and carrying out the cycle of heaven and earth. The cultivation of soul power by a soul master belongs to the great Zhou Tian of the body. Soul masters need to control their soul power to complete the major circulation of meridians and acupoints throughout the body. Swimming once is considered a week. During the process of wandering, soul power will subtly cleanse the soul master's body, achieving the goal of strengthening physical fitness. Generally speaking, the better the quality of soul power, the better the reinforcement for soul masters. The quality of soul power is directly proportional to the quality of martial souls, so high-quality martial soul masters are stronger than ordinary martial soul masters. Zhu Xiang successfully completed the first cycle of soul power, without encountering any obstacles. He completed it with ease and familiarity, unlike most soul masters who encounter many obstacles during their first cycle of soul power in life. He understood that this was actually the credit of the little bright breathing technique, because after years of practice, the strand of qi in the Tanzhong acupoint had already traveled countless times through the main meridians and acupoints in his body. Impurities and obstacles in the meridians had already been cleaned and penetrated through his body, and even his meridians had been unconsciously expanded and consolidated, becoming wider and stronger. This alone is enough to prove the extraordinary nature of the little bright breathing technique, which broadens meridians and enhances qualifications. This is an opportunity that many soul masters dream of. The first Sunday operation was completed, and he couldn't help but show an excited smile before continuing his cultivation. When Zhu Xiang woke up from his cultivation, it was already 6 o'clock in the morning. He opened his eyes, with an uncontrollable joy in his eyes. He used his soul power 9 times last night. 9 of them. As a child who is practicing for the first time, this number is truly unparalleled. You should know that the first cultivation of a soul master is often the most difficult. Due to unfamiliarity with soul power, unfamiliarity with meridians and acupoints within the body, and unfamiliarity with meditation methods, many soul masters may not be able to complete a soul power cycle during their first practice, but they have operated for 9 cycles. Wishing Xiang a clear understanding, this is all thanks to the wisp of qi from the little bright breathing technique. Early morning. On the small path at the village head. The boy and girl ran shoulder to shoulder. Nan, did you practice last night? Zhu Xiang asked, using the little light breathing technique, his steps were very steady. They had been running for 6 full Sundays last night. When it came to cultivation, the little girl immediately smiled and her bright eyes curved into beautiful crescents. Really? Nan Nan is really amazing. Zhu Xiang was very surprised. The better Jiang Nanan's talent is, the more it shows that his vision is not wrong. He is truly his childhood sweetheart. Cluck. The praised little girl was very happy and let out a silver bell-like laughter. At this speed, Nan Nan, you may reach level 10 in less than 2 months and be able to obtain the first soul ring, Zhu Xiang inferred. If that's really the case, it would be great. Nan Nan will try her best to keep up with her brother's footsteps, said Jiang Nan Nan with a hopeful expression on her face. Yesterday, she had already learned from her mother what innate soul power meant. I will definitely do it. Zhu Xiang couldn't help but stop and gently stroke the little girl's hair, saying, I will help you. Jiang Nanan's pretty face turned slightly red, showing a hint of shyness, and she said, let's continue running, brother. Boys and girls run along the village path facing the sunrise. After running, Zhu Xiang and Jiang Nan Nan separated and went home. Before parting, Zhu Xiang taught Jiang Nan Nan the little bright breathing technique and instructed her to practice it once a day before practicing, and then use it during morning runs. Jiang Nan Nan listens to Zhu Xiang's words very much, and unlike Zhu Changhe and Liang Ying, who have already learned the little bright breathing technique, she takes his words for granted, practicing fishing for 3 days and drying the net for 2 days. Zhu Xiang wants to verify one thing, which is whether the little bright breathing technique has the effect of improving qualifications. With Jiang Nanan's qualifications, if the little bright breathing technique can improve her qualifications, it will definitely add to the beauty. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Soul Ring Selection Method. Death Attribute. Request for Recommendation Ticket. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Soul Ring Selection Method. Death Attribute. Request for Recommendation Ticket. Today, Zhu Changhe will take him to hunt for the first soul ring, which will take at least 7 days. Therefore, when he returns home, the couple is preparing dry food and salutes. Yang Yang is back, let's go eat. After breakfast, we can set off, Liang Ying ordered after seeing Zhu Xiang's return. Got it. Zhu Xiang nodded and went to eat. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Zhu Xiang and his father Zhu Changhe set off under the expectant gaze of their mother Liang Ying. Their destination for this trip is the Tianhui Canyon to the west of Anyang City, a grand canyon where soul beasts gather. Although it cannot be compared to the famous forests and mountains on the mainland, it is also one of the soul beast gathering areas near Anyang City. Soul masters from the surrounding cities of Tianhui Canyon are willing to come here to hunt for soul rings. The reason is simple. There are a large number of soul beasts in Tianhui Canyon, mainly consisting of century-old soul beasts and supplemented by millennium-old soul beasts. As for the 10,000-year soul beasts, there are hardly any. In addition, there are various soul beast groups with bright attributes in Tianhui Canyon, which can be said to be a very suitable hunting location for Zhu Xiang's soul rings. The Tianhui Canyon is about 200 kilometers away from Anyang City. Based on the speed of Zhu Xiang and his companions, it is estimated to take 3 days. The father and son were communicating as they hurried along, time slowly passing and the distance from Tianhui Canyon slowly getting closer. Yang Yang, have you figured out what soul beast's soul ring you want? The first choice is the blazing praying mantis. If there is no suitable one, then soul beasts such as the radiant wolf, white shadow sparrow, and blazing iron armored beast are also acceptable. Ah! Why did you choose these? Zhu Changhe looked at Zhu Xiang with some surprise. Of course, it's because these soul beasts have the attribute of brightness. Zhu Xiang said as expected, the soul rings of these soul beasts can enhance the brightness attribute of the glow sickle, so they are naturally the preferred choice. That's true, Zhu Changhe thought for a moment. He was not clear about the essence of this approach, but he felt in his heart that Zhu Xiang's statement was correct, so he agreed with his words. At the same time, he felt a bit guilty and said, "Unfortunately, my dad's strength is limited, otherwise I would definitely look for those top-level light attribute soul beasts to make soul rings for you." "It's okay, Dad," Zhu Xiang comforted, "these soul beasts are also quite good." What Zhu Xiang said is true. The absorption of soul rings by soul masters is essentially a process of absorbing and refining the bloodlines of soul beasts contained in soul rings to strengthen their own bloodlines and promote blood evolution. However, only a small group of people in the entire soul master world know such a simple and easy-to-understand principle. This is knowledge monopoly. If Zhu Xiang did not have a super library, he would probably have followed the path of a normal civilian soul master, choosing soul rings based on the direction of soul master development, rather than choosing soul rings based on the path of martial soul evolution. At that time, Zhu Xiang may have realized that he had taken the wrong path, which would probably have wasted his talent and ultimately led to his martial soul returning to ordinary, and he himself would have disappeared into the crowd. He is very fortunate. In the current world of soul masters, ordinary soul masters are limited by knowledge and strength. When choosing soul rings, they usually only consider the direction of soul master development. That is, strong attack type soul masters will choose soul beasts with strong strength and high attack, sensitive attack type soul masters will choose soul beasts with fast speed and light body, and defense type soul masters will choose soul beasts with strong physique and high defense. This method of obtaining soul rings may provide soul masters with good soul skills, but the substantial improvement of soul masters themselves is very limited. Martial souls can only receive weak enhancement, and blood vessels not only cannot be enhanced, but may also be damaged due to absorbing too many complex blood vessels. Even the most talented soul masters will continue to practice and become useless. The two soul rings of Zhu Changhe were chosen in this way. The first soul ring comes from the Sickle Bone Demon, and the second soul ring comes from the Iron Wire Praying Mantis. It seems that there is no light attribute martial soul, and it is truly blind to the thin light element of the dark light sickle martial soul. On the contrary, soul masters from aristocratic or powerful backgrounds will prioritize the evolution path of their martial souls when choosing soul rings. They usually have a good understanding of the characteristics of their own martial souls and bloodlines, and are more cautious in choosing soul beasts and positioning them more accurately. For example, when selecting soul rings, Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus Rex soul masters often prioritize dragon-type soul beasts and lightning attribute soul beasts, either dragon-type soul beasts, lightning attribute soul beasts, or lightning attribute dragon-type soul beasts. This type of soul ring attachment method is undoubtedly better. It not only fully develops the potential of martial souls, but also strengthens them at a deeper level, enhances the bloodline of soul masters, and ultimately evolves to a higher quality existence as the strength of soul masters increases. The two methods of selecting soul rings result in vastly different outcomes, with the strong remaining strong and the weak remaining weak. This is the terrifying aspect of knowledge monopoly. Wishing Xiang true happiness. When the father and son arrived at Tianhui Canyon, it was already the evening of the third day. They camped outside the canyon and prepared to enter the canyon tomorrow to search for soul beasts. At night, Zhu Changhe sat by the fire to guard the night, while Zhu Xiang rested in the tent. Zhu Changhe looked at the fire pile with his eyes, and his mind was pondering over and over again what his son had said on the way. Thinking about it, he couldn't help but smile with relief. It is truly the blessing of his ancestors. His son is not only talented, but also intelligent and decisive. He seems to have seen a bright future for the Lao Zhu family. In the latter half of the night, Zhu Xiang stepped out of the tent and walked to Zhu Changhe's side, letting him rest in the tent and watch the night on his own. Zhu Changhe hesitated for a moment, then was convinced by Zhu Xiang, citing, "He needs to contribute tomorrow." Zhu Xiang sat in the position of Zhu Changhe just now, looking at the dying fire, adding some firewood, and then fell into deep thought. He actually planned his soul ring selection a long time ago. When did it start? It was probably after he read the book, On the Influence of Soul Ring Quality on the Development of Soul Masters. Zhu Xiang was very interested in the conclusion in the book. After all, his parents were both ordinary martial souls, and there was a 90% chance that he was also an ordinary martial soul. After reading so many books, he is very clear about the importance of martial soul quality for soul masters, and there is hardly any strong person in history whose martial soul is ordinary. How could he be willing to live a mediocre life on his own? But with a 95% chance of being an ordinary martial soul, it seems destined that he can only determine his future through mutation. However, having read so many books, he understood very well that the sickle lizard of an ordinary martial soul could not suddenly mutate into the death sickle ice dragon of a top-level martial soul. Therefore, upon seeing this book about how ordinary martial souls can evolve into advanced or even top-level martial souls, he naturally did not want to miss it. Therefore, after reading it 8 or 9 times and many related theoretical books, he began to plan his own path of martial soul evolution. He made 2 plans in total, one for the Huiguang sickle and one for the snow dragon lizard. According to various soul master theories such as bloodline evolution theory and soul ring quality theory, the essence of cultivation is the self-improvement and self-strengthening of the living body, which is the process of transitioning from low-level life to high-level life. Specifically, soul masters cultivate martial souls by absorbing soul rings to strengthen their martial souls, refining soul rings to evolve their bloodlines, and ultimately achieving the goal of enhancing their own life level. Taking Zhu Xiang's glow sickle martial soul as an example, as long as he continuously absorbs the light attribute soul ring and strengthens the light attribute of the glow sickle through the light element source contained in the light attribute soul ring, his glow sickle martial soul will evolve step by step, and be promoted to top-level martial soul or even super martial soul. Wishing Xiang a firm gaze. A pure white long-handled sickle appeared in his hand, with a slender handle and sharp blade. The overall length exceeded 1.5 meters, appearing just right in the hands of 6-year-old Zhu Xiang. This sickle is his martial soul glow sickle, emitting a bright aura that appears quite warm in the cold wind of the night. However, in this warm light, there is a faint gray aura circulating. The gray aura was so unreal that it swirled around the glow sickle before disappearing onto the light-colored skull at the top of the sickle. Zhu Xiang's eyes flashed with contemplation. His glow sickle martial soul not only possessed a more powerful element of light than the glow sickle, but also awakened its sparse attribute of death. Is it a martial soul where light and death coexist? Zhu Xiang saw it for the first time, at least in all the books he had read. There was no mention of such a martial soul. I hope this weak death attribute won't cause him any trouble. Zhu Xiang thought this way and then put away his martial soul. He is very excited and nervous. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The White Bone Sickle Demon and the First Soul Ring. Request for recommendation ticket. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The White Bone Sickle Demon and the First Soul Ring. Request for recommendation ticket. The next day, Zhu Changhe closed the camp and led Zhu Xiang into the Tianhui Canyon. The Tianhui Canyon runs north-south and is very narrow. They entered from the north, while the Tianhui Canyon extended southward all the way to Jie City, for over 600 kilometers. The father and son entered the canyon and saw rugged rocks, tall trees, dense weeds, and sparse bones, creating a desolate scene. Yang, follow me closely and don't wander around. It's very dangerous here, you know. Zhu Changhe said with a serious expression, repeatedly admonishing. I know. Zhu Xiang also knew that this was not the time for him to show off, and obediently agreed, closely following Zhu Changhe's footsteps. They walked westward along the mountain terrain, and in the forest area about 5 kilometers west of the north exit of the canyon, there were soul beasts like the radiant praying mantis that appeared. This was the preferred soul beast for Zhu Xiang's first soul ring, and they naturally wouldn't miss such an opportunity. Ha! Those are the Sickle Bone Demons. Zhu Xiang suddenly stopped because he noticed a group of uniquely looking soul beasts not far ahead. They looked very much like kangaroos, but their forelimbs looked like huge sickles. Their bones were also very huge, with few muscles, and they looked like a skeleton covered in white fur. They are the source of Zhu Changhe's first soul ring, the Sickle Bone Demon, a soul beast with incredibly hard bones that can easily split through giant stones with its forelimbs. The group of Sickle Bone Demons they encountered were about 10, all below 100 years of cultivation, running frantically towards the east. Among these Sickle Bone Demons, there happens to be one that suits you. Dad's favorite soul beasts are them, how about that? Zhu Changhe looked at Zhu Xiang and said. How could it be? I am very firm. Zhu Xiang decisively refused his father's suggestion. Since that's the case, let's keep going, Zhu Changhe said helplessly, but he didn't mean to force him. The father and son set off again, but before they could walk 200 meters, they encountered 7 or 8 groups of Sickle Bone Demons, all of which were more than 10, running towards the outside in a panic and haste, as if something terrifying was chasing them from behind. Zhu Xiang and Zhu Changhe, who noticed this scene, immediately stopped in their tracks. They exchanged a glance and saw the vigilance in each other's eyes. Zhu Changhe said, the situation is not right. There may have been a powerful soul beast in that direction, otherwise these Sickle Bone Demons wouldn't have run out in groups. Yang, let's change direction. Okay. Zhu Xiang agreed without hesitation, but he was very willing to take his life. Faced with such an obviously dangerous unknown situation, the most prudent way is naturally to take a detour. If Zhu Changhe is the Soul Emperor and Soul Saint, then Zhu Xiang may still continue to move forward with the idea of encountering adventures. However, Zhu Changhe is just a great soul master. If he encounters a soul beast with a cultivation level of over 1,000 years, they will be ruined, and there is no room for him to refuse. The father and son reached a consensus and immediately turned around, walking in the direction of their arrival. They decided to go to the exit first to observe and wait until it was confirmed that there were no major issues inside the canyon before entering. However, before he could reach 100 meters, Zhu Xiang's casual glance back made him suddenly feel blessed and had a bold idea. Dad, wait. He stopped and shouted, Zhu Changhe. What's wrong? Zhu Changhe was taken aback and looked at Zhu Xiang with some confusion, asking. I want the soul beast behind me. Zhu Xiang turned around and pointed to a soul beast slowly approaching from 400 to 500 meters behind, his gaze fixed, as if he had been bewitched. Ah! Zhu Changhe was a bit confused, but he still followed Zhu Xiang's hand and looked over. At this glance, he suddenly couldn't understand. That is a century-old Sickle Bone Demon. Although its appearance is slightly different from other Sickle Bone Demons, its iconic sickle forelimbs are never wrong. He looked at Zhu Xiang with a hint of inquiry and said, Are you sure? Sure. Zhu Xiang nodded and said. He can be certain that Zhu Changhe must have mistaken that soul beast for a Sickle Bone Demon, but this is just right. He will oppose his decision once he finds out the truth. Okay. You wait here, I'll go catch it. Zhu Changhe gave Zhu Xiang a deep glance and said. Subsequently, he charged towards the soul beast he believed to be the Sickle Bone Demon. Without any hesitation, Zhu Changhe instantly summoned a martial soul, and 2 yellow soul rings appeared behind him. The second soul ring lit up instantly with Zhu Changhe's movements. Huiguang Sickle Second Soul Skill, Iron Blade Slash. The blade of the Huiguang Sickle, which was about 50 centimeters long, instantly attached a sharp aura and almost mercilessly struck the body of the suspected Sickle Bone Demon soul beast that was still in a dull state. A great soul master's full strike instantly put this soul beast, which could have been cultivated for 100 years, into a state of near death. Even if it weren't for Zhu Changhe's recovery at the last moment, it might have died. With a successful strike, Zhu Changhe immediately grabbed the dying soul beast and rushed back to Zhu Xiang's side. He gasped for breath and said, "Yang Yang, hurry up and leave the canyon before we talk." Zhu Xiang saw that the soul beast had already arrived, so he no longer hesitated and followed in the footsteps of Zhu Changhe, running towards the outside of the canyon. During his run, his gaze couldn't help but fall on the soul beast in Zhu Changhe's hand. This soul beast, which looks very much like the Sickle Bone Demon, is indeed related to the Sickle Bone Demon and is also the reason why the Sickle Bone Demon group suddenly fled. It is a variant of the Sickle Bone Demon, the White Bone Sickle Demon. If you only look at the name, you will feel that it is no different from the Sickle Bone Demon, but Zhu Xiang is very clear that the White Bone Sickle Demon is much stronger than the Sickle Bone Demon. The Sickle Bone Demon is just an ordinary soul beast, while the White Bone Sickle Demon is a high-level soul beast with death attributes. Although they are mutated Sickle Bone Demons, they are two different species from the Sickle Bone Demon. If the Sickle Bone Demon suffocates during childbirth, it may mutate into a White Bone Sickle Demon. And the White Bone Sickle Demon with the attribute of death, like seeking revenge, will crazily slaughter the Sickle Bone Demon. Under normal circumstances, a 100-year-old White Bone Sickle Demon can be compared to a 500-year-old Sickle Demon, let alone a White Bone Sickle Demon with a very strong ability to counter the death attribute of Sickle Demons. So, the Sickle Bone Demons are so afraid of the White Bone Sickle Demon. It was also because the White Bone Sickle Demon possessed the attribute of death that Zhu Xiang suddenly changed his mind. He suddenly wanted to know what his glow sickle soul would look like if it had true death attributes. The death attribute of the glow sickle is very rare and cannot be compared to the light attribute at all. But if this rare death attribute becomes a true death attribute, will the glow sickle soul with both light and death attributes be promoted to a top-level soul? This idea was like a devil, repeatedly teasing Zhu Xiang's mind, ultimately leading him to make such a decision. And this decision will also affect Zhu Xiang's life. The two quickly walked out of the canyon and arrived at the place where they camped last night. Zhu Changhe threw the dying White Bone Sickle Demon onto the ground, then looked at Zhu Xiang and asked again, "Xiang, have you made up your mind? This mutated Sickle Bone Demon only has 100-year cultivation and is not suitable for you. If you really want a Sickle Bone Demon, Dad can help you catch one with a 400-year cultivation. I've figured it out, it's it." Zhu Xiang replied firmly, his gaze never leaving the White Bone Sickle Demon. The thought kept hovering in his mind, repeatedly worrying that he would turn back. "Okay." Zhu Changhe sighed and said, "Although I'm not sure why you insist on having this Sickle Bone Demon, I still hope you don't force yourself because of me." "No need to say more, Dad. I naturally have my own considerations when choosing it. When I finish absorbing its soul ring, you will understand." Zhu Xiang finally lifted his head and looked at Zhu Changhe. Zhu Changhe saw determination in his gaze, helpless, and ultimately could only acquiesce to Zhu Xiang's decision. Zhu Xiang suppressed his inner excitement and nervousness, summoned the glow sickle martial soul, and then aimed it at the head of the White Bone Sickle Demon. With a puff sound, the blade pierced the White Bone Sickle Demon's eyes and penetrated its brain. The White Bone Sickle Demon's body twitched a few times, and then there was no movement at all. A pale yellow soul ring floated out of its body. A newborn White Bone Sickle Demon fell like this before it could fully display its skills. "Alright, you absorbed the soul ring. I'll help you protect the Dharma." Zhu Changhe nodded in satisfaction as he saw Zhu Xiang's decisive action. Zhu Xiang sat down directly, placed the glow sickle on his legs, and stared at the yellow soul ring, mobilizing his soul power and pulling it towards him. He began to absorb the first soul ring. End of this chapter. Chapter 10 First Soul Skill. Blade of Death. Request for recommendation ticket. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 First Soul Skill. Blade of Death. Request for recommendation ticket. Outside the Tianhui Canyon, Zhu Xiang silently absorbs his soul ring. The surging soul power poured out from the soul ring and surged through the meridians of Zhu Ziang. Zhu Ziang's own soul power has set up layers of obstacles, repeatedly intercepting, absorbing, and assimilating. His widened meridians are also silently absorbing that soul power, which is then transported to various parts of his body through blood, slowly strengthening his body. Along with the surging soul power pouring out, there is also a special gray energy, which is the power of death contained in the bloodline of the white-boned sickle demon. Under the deliberate guidance of Zhu Ziang's martial soul, it detaches from the soul power of the soul ring and flows towards Zhu Ziang's Tanzhong acupoint. The absorption of the soul ring went smoothly, and the soul ring was successfully refined. The blood vessels containing death attributes were also completely absorbed by the glow sickle in the Tanzhong acupoint. Zhu Ziang couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and then began to focus on absorbing and refining soul power. At this moment, Zhu Changhe from the outside world was very surprised to find that his son, who was absorbing soul rings, was undergoing a different transformation. His body emitted a faint golden light, but the edge of the golden light was a strange gray gas ring. Zhu Changhe was surprised in his heart, but did not pay attention. Instead, he looked forward to the changes after Zhu Ziang absorbed the soul ring. By the time Zhu Ziang had absorbed his first soul ring, it was already 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. After he opened his eyes, joy flashed through his eyes and he immediately summoned a martial soul. A pale yellow soul ring flickered behind him, but his gaze was all on the martial soul in his hand. A brand new glow sickle appeared in his hand. The sickle handle, which was 1.6 meters long, was pure white with incomplete patterns engraved in light gold. At the end of the sickle handle, there was a pure white ball slightly wider than the handle, on which a skull was carved. The material of the right blade on the handle has become sharper and brighter, and an outer blade has been added on top of the original inner blade, which has greatly increased the combat style. The sub-blade is still circular in shape, but its size has increased significantly. The cutting range has also changed from a quarter fan shape to a semi-circular shape, giving it the overall appearance of a small axe. The hilt of the gun has become even more prominent. Originally, it only had a pointed appearance, but now it has truly become a diamond-shaped gun head. If the blade is removed, it becomes a majestic silver gun. The light-colored skull on the blade has turned into a dark color, which is quite eye-catching on the overall pure white battle sickle. This is... Zhu Changhe looked over, his eyes filled with surprise. I succeeded, Dad. Zhu Ziang's eyes were filled with surprise and excitement. I am now a soul master. Very good. Zhu Changhe was also quite happy, with a smile on his face. He looked at the yellow soul ring floating behind his son, feeling so relieved that he forgot about the unusual appearance of Zhu Ziang's martial soul. He said, "Try your soul skills quickly and see how it works." Zhu Ziang nodded in response, not paying attention to the changes in his martial soul for the time being. Instead, he closed his eyes and focused on feeling the soul skills brought to him by the soul ring. In a moment of effort, he opened his eyes and took a step forward. The glow sickle in his hand emitted a lonely aura, and the yellow soul ring behind him quickly flickered. Zhu Ziang swung the glow sickle and made a chopping motion. Suddenly, a X-shaped gray-white knife aura swung out, hitting a large tree not far away, instantly splitting the giant tree that was embraced by at least 4 or 5 people into 4 parts. The gray-white knife aura eventually hit the ground, leaving a 1-meter-sized X-shaped crack. The first soul skill, the Blade of Death. Concentrate the power of death on the blade of the glow sickle, and swing a powerful destructive sword aura towards the front. Zhu Ziang watched the scene caused by his strike and silently calculated that it consumed about 1/9 of his soul power, with decent power. Most importantly, it had a special effect attached. He walked towards the big tree that had been split into 4 halves, and saw a faint grayish-white color at the cut of the blade. This grayish-white color was slowly eroding the life of the big tree. This is the effect that comes with the blade of death, deprivation of life. Deprive the vitality of the hit creature, causing it to gradually age and then die. This ability is very similar to that of an evil soul master, but it is the purest use of the death attribute, which is vastly different from those evil soul masters who rely on devouring vitality, and even has the ability to restrain evil soul masters. The most important thing is that Zhu Xiang can manipulate the effect of life deprivation at will. He wants the blade of the death blade to have a life deprivation effect, so it has it. If it doesn't have it, then it cannot deprive of vitality. Well, it's not bad. Zhu Xiang smiled and muttered to himself, this first soul ring is really profitable. Not only has it gained such powerful soul skills, but it has also repaired the death attribute of the glow sickle, making it a true martial soul that coexists with light and death. Zhu Xiang's face was filled with excitement and excitement. The glow sickle with the two upper attributes of light and death must be stronger than the glow sickle with a single light attribute. However, he with the attribute of death will not be regarded as an evil soul master by people, will he? His eyes sparkled with an unusual light. What a destructive power! Zhu Changhe walked up to him with a surprised expression on his face and said, "Is this your first soul skill?" Yang. That's right, isn't it very impressive? Zhu Xiang boasted as he looked at Zhu Changhe. It's really impressive, but why is it a sword-like soul skill? There shouldn't be such a soul skill like the sickle bone demon, right? Zhu Changhe looked puzzled and puzzled. Ordinary sickle bone demons cannot, but this one is different, Zhu Xiang thought for a moment and said, this is a mutated sickle bone demon. I have seen it in a book, and this mutated sickle bone demon has a death attribute and can emit death strike type soul skills. Therefore, I can only obtain sword chi type soul skills after absorbing its soul ring. Death attribute. Zhu Changhe was shocked when he heard Zhu Xiang's explanation. He then looked at Zhu Xiang with a puzzled and worried face and asked, "Do you mean you have absorbed the soul ring of death attribute? Are you okay?" "Oh, Dad, take it easy." Zhu Xiang looked at Zhu Changhe with an anxious expression and comforted him, "Listen to me explain." "Okay, then you can tell me." Zhu Changhe forced himself to calm down and stared at Zhu Xiang, saying, "Actually, my glow sickle martial soul is a martial soul with both light and death attributes," Zhu Xiang said, "that's why I was able to absorb the soul ring of that white bone sickle demon." What? Zhu Changhe's face was very exciting, not as shocked as Zhu Xiang had imagined. Instead, he felt a bit relieved and only listened to his fragmented thoughts, saying, "I didn't expect Grandpa's words to be true. It's really unbelievable." What? This time it was Zhu Xiang's turn to be confused, and he looked curiously at Zhu Changhe. "Your great-grandfather once told me that his grandfather, who is the first soul master of our Zhu family, has both light and death attributes in his martial soul. I thought he was joking, but I didn't expect it to be true," Zhu Changhe said. "So it's like this?" Zhu Xiang suddenly said. "That's right." Zhu Changhe was a little excited and said, Yang, your martial soul can be said to have returned to the ancestors, which shows that our Zhu family is really going to develop. Don't worry, Dad. With me around, our Zhu family will definitely become the strongest family in the mainland. Zhu Xiang said, his small face full of confidence that knows no bounds. Very good. Zhu Changhe naturally won't undermine his son's confidence, with a pleased smile on his face, saying, "Our task has been successfully completed. Hurry up and go home, tell your mother this good news, and make her happy too." Go home. Zhu Xiang exclaimed happily. The father and son embarked on their way home. Because Zhu Xiang officially became a soul master, their speed of travel has increased significantly. The most obvious change is that it took 3 days to arrive, but only 2 days to return. So, on the 6th night after leaving home, they returned to Beihezwang. "Wife, we're back." Entering the house, Zhu Changhe shouted. "Ah Yang, how are you? What kind of soul rings and soul skills have you obtained? Liang Ying rushed out of the room upon hearing the sound and immediately hugged Zhu Ziang, excitedly asking. Let Dad tell you, I'm going to take a shower. It's been 6 days since I last took a shower, and I feel so uncomfortable, Zhu Ziang said, with an eager expression on his face. Okay, then. Although Liang Ying was somewhat disappointed, she didn't stop Zhu Ziang's decision and let him leave, but it made Zhu Changhe suffer. Liang Ying grabbed Zhu Changhe's arm and prevented him from escaping. With a strong and coquettish tone in her voice, she said, "You go ahead." Zhu Changhe reluctantly agreed. End of this chapter.